Talking baseball, baseball and the
Welcome back, Birdland, to another episode of the Talkin Orioles Baseball Podcast. I am your host, Benny Becker. Thrilled as always, gang, as you know, to be sitting down here talking about our beloved Baltimore Orioles with all of you. So excited for this episode, not necessarily because we got a lot of good stuff to talk about, but there is a lot to unpack in this episode for Birdland, for what's been going on to our Orioles, gang. It seems like forever ago that this team was essentially on top of the world after 101 season 2 years ago. Seems like forever ago that they were playing good baseball at the beginning of last season for the first half. And it seems like we've been stuck in a never-ending hell, really, gang, since the All-Star break last year. We know last year we finished down the stretch very poorly. A horrible second half by these Birds, once again getting swept out of the postseason. And here we are again, gang, in despair, in demise. It hasn't been fun, gang. It has not been fun. We have a lot of stuff to unpack and talk about today, including the absolute bloodbath that was 24-2 to end the Red Series. Talk about the rest of the Red Series, the Nat Series, possible Mullins extension, some struggles, scrutinizing Elias's draft strategy, and a whole lot more, gang. Fantastic episode that we have on our hands, and boy, is there a lot to talk about for these Birds. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. We're going to start nowhere else but 24-2. 24-2 is how these Orioles ended that Red Series, gang, and it was horrible, clearly. 24-2 is an embarrassment. Absolutely devastating way to end the series just when you thought that maybe they might be turning a corner. Maybe they might be playing good baseball again. And then we have that embarrassment that was 24-2. Charlie Morton gave us the start, and he never gave us a chance in that start. Needed at least 5 innings out of him the way that the bullpen was set up. It was exhausted from the night before when we, I believe, pitched 7 relievers in that game. And we, like I said, needed the veteran to come in and at least eat some innings for us and hopefully give us some good, productive innings. Meanwhile, Morton wound up not being able to even get out of the third. His stat line on the day, 2 1/3 inning pitched, 7 hits, 4 walks, 2 strikeouts, 7 earned runs given up by Charlie Morton. Each team actually scored a run in the second, but the O's run came because of an error. So it's not even like the offense came out slightly hot or really producing. We were lucky to get that run in the second. The Reds end up putting up 7 in the third. They put up 2 in the fourth, 2 in the fifth, 3 in the seventh, 5 in the eighth, 4 in the ninth to close out what just turned out to be a massacre at Camden Yards that day. The last 2 innings were pitched by Jorge Mateo and Gary Sanchez. So position players just throwing in softballs, essentially. So, sure, 9 of those runs, you can say, don't really matter. Either way, it was an absolute demolishing of our Baltimore Orioles. It was the most runs the O's have given up since 2007 when they lost 30-3 against Texas. And frankly, gang, at some point, whether it was the 3rd inning, the 4th inning, you started thinking that Cincy might wind up beating that score of 30-3. Truly. Shocking almost that they didn't get to 30 runs that day. Still, 24 is beyond too much. And again, even if you take away 9 of them, that's still 13 real runs that the Orioles gave up that day. The Reds had a bullpen day too, so coming into the day, we started getting excited. When we did our Red Series preview, we talked about how this might also be a tough game. We talked about how all 3 games might be a tough game to get, but that this one also was not a great matchup for them. when the Reds decide to pull that starter and go with a bullpen game, you start getting a little excited. The Reds started one of their 2 left-handed pitchers in their bullpen, so if you can get to him, you had a real shot at not only competing, but winning that game. That was not the case. Every Orioles pitcher in that game allowed at least 3 earned runs. Again, Mateo and Sanchez being 2 of those pitchers. Still, every single pitcher allowing at least 3 earned runs. And you can't really blame the offense for the loss, although they were 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position. Pretty much seems like that's what we're doing on a nightly basis. Leaving 8 guys on base, again, something that seems we do on a nightly basis. So while certainly the game got out of hand and the offense is not to blame, the offense didn't really help keep us in the game at any point. Again, that first run was off of an error as well. Adley did find a meaningless home run in the 8th, making it the score that it wound up ending at. But ultimately, it feels like rock bottom. And frankly, I'm hoping it's rock bottom. And when we get deeper into this episode, there might be great reasons and signs why this is not rock bottom, gang. And trust me when I say, I am hoping this is rock bottom and these Orioles can find a way to turn it around. It's just, when you look into the future, when you look at what's coming, even in the near future, I don't know if this is rock bottom yet, gang. We may have yet to bottom out in this despair that is this beginning of the Orioles season. Frankly, this is what teams or fans were worried about with this team coming into the year. A starter that can't keep them in the game, an offense who relies too much on the home runs and can't expect to win games if we're not hitting multiple home runs in the game. Again, if we only hit 2 or 3 home runs, we're still not competing in this 24-2 game. However, you never know. And the offense is based off of multiple home runs in the game. That's something we hope will come with nicer weather. And certainly the power has seemed to tick up some from the first couple weeks of the season when it was slow. However, again, flaws maybe in the Orioles' approach to hitting, and certainly flaws in the Orioles' starting rotation. And that's a point that the fans saw coming going into the season. Less me. I got on the train by the end of camp that even with the injuries, we could have a very solid quality rotation. That's something I've been preaching to you on this show. Those feelings have dissipated and may be gone completely. And I may be in the camp with the rest of a lot of you, at least, that doesn't see the positive in this staff anymore. Doesn't see the quality in this staff anymore. And frankly, how do you rebound from that kind of embarrassment? We didn't have an episode on Monday because that was the day after the 24-2. And frankly, we just needed to breathe a little. We needed to pump the brakes a second. So that's why we waited until this Thursday to come out with our episode on this. And we were hoping how they would rebound was positively, with a short road trip to Washington around the corner. And the idea that Washington is a little banged up. Washington's not playing great baseball. This is a team that maybe you can turn it around against. And after that loss of 24-2, you come out and you show your heart. You come out with a fire in you, and you can win that series. Well, gang, you probably already know, but that has not been the case so far in this National Series, and that's something we'll get to more as we go through the episode. Frankly, will that loss be the wake-up call? Again, when I was writing that, I was planning on doing this episode before the Washington series. Doesn't seem like it has been the wake-up call. Instead, it seems like a sign of what this season at least has turned into, and maybe is going to continue turning into. Now, I still believe that whether it be the 24-2 or how they've played since, it is going to be a wake-up call, and they are going to turn some things around. But at this point, my belief is seriously wavering. And again, I wrote those words before these Nationals games. At this point, it's beyond wavering. It's at the point where I am truly, truly beyond concerned for this team and how they're going to play the rest of the season. We talked about it coming into this year. You cannot win it early, but you can certainly lose it early. You can put yourself in a position that even with the extra wild card team, you're essentially out of it for most, if not the rest of the season. We'll see, gang. We are digging ourselves a hole. And again, the near future doesn't look like something that we're going to dig ourselves out of the hole with. But I'll get to that. Let's recap the rest of the Red series and how it went. That game 1, 8-3, we ended up losing. We were up 1-0 after 2 innings. The Reds score 3 in the third, 4 in the fourth, wind up scoring 1 in the sixth as well. Cade Povich had to start easily his worst game so far this season. 3 1/3 innings pitched, 6 hits, 5 walks, 4 Ks, 7 earned runs, 3 home runs on the day given up by Povich. It was the first time a game really got away from him all year. He maybe hasn't had great starts throughout this season, but he hadn't had one of those horrible starts either. This certainly was a horrible start, and it was the first time he was really walking guys, allowing guys to get on base through walks. Coming into the game, I believe he only had 3 walks through 3 games. He had 5 walks just in this game. And he continues just to live in the middle of the plate way too much, gang. And again, in that game, he was also living outside the strike zone, which ended up continuing to kill him. While I think he may have gotten killed either way if he was putting balls over the plate that day, certainly putting guys on base with walks is not the way to do it. Orioles only find 4 hits that game, 2 of which were home runs, one by Mullins, one by Kerstead. 0 for 1 with runners in scoring position, 2 left on base. Again, gang, if you're not getting hits and you're not putting guys on, it doesn't matter. And when you lose 8-3, maybe a couple more hits don't matter. Maybe only going 0 for 1 with runners in scoring position doesn't matter, because even if you go 1 for 1 or 3 for 3, you still probably lose that game. Ultimately, though, again, the offense just inconsistent night after night. And when they do put men on scoring position, they rarely are driving them in. And then you have games like this where you're not even getting guys on base and in scoring position. It felt like truly we might get swept after that game 1. It's a reality we talked about coming into the series. And when you drop that game 1, which was probably the easiest matchup of the series, you start worrying, oh, here comes a sweep. And then game 2 comes. We end up winning 9-5, facing Hunter Greene, one of the best pitchers in baseball, maybe the best pitcher in baseball coming into that game. Hunter Greene clearly was not his best self in that game. He only pitched 3 innings that day, allowing 6 hits, 2 walks, 4 Ks, 5 earned runs on 3 home runs. The Orioles were really hitting him hard and hitting him early. He seemed to be a little all over the place, and when he did come into the zone, the Orioles again hit him hard. So that was great to see. You got on top of their ace, one of the best premier aces so far in baseball this season. Again, these are things that make you think, hey, things are turning around. And not only was it great to get that win in general, and to get that win off a guy like Hunter Greene, but you had Brandon Young in his first major league start also in that game. So again, going into that game too, that's why especially you felt, oh, we might get swept. Because not only are we facing a premier elite starter on game 2, but we're pitching a guy who, while he's a nice prospect, isn't elite as far as prospects go, and is in his first major league start, and that makes you worry. Brandon Young, though, did well. 4 innings pitched, 7 hits, 3 walks, 3 Ks, 3 earned runs, 1 home run given up. He let up 1 in the first, 2 in the second. Again, looked like it was going to get ugly. Obviously let on more guys on base than he wanted to, but was able to work out of those jams. We did see flashes of a guy who could give us solid starts throughout this season. But again, he's not an elite talent. He's not an elite prospect. There's only so much you can reasonably expect from a guy like Brandon Young moving forward this season. Because we also saw a guy that was liable to be another liability on this bump for us. Again, he gave up 1 in the first and 2 in the second. He had to work himself out of jams. Had 10 guys on base in his 4 innings. These aren't stats that make you go, oh yeah, I can't wait to see him with another start. Overall, like I said previously, the O's used 7 relievers in that game. That's why Game 3 was so big for Charlie Morton to give us innings, of which he was not able to accomplish. It felt really like we turned a corner in that game, at least a little bit. Again, getting on Hunter Green the way we did, coming out of a game where we barely hit. It felt like, hey, this is good. And not only good, this feels like a team that maybe is ready to win another series, win a second series of the season, going into that Game 3, where obviously, again, we know they lost brutally 24-2. The O's did make some history, however, in this series. In Game 2, the Orioles became the first team to have back-to-back home runs to lead off a game, 2 pairs of back-to-back home runs off 2 different pitchers. And how that's worded, I really think it's a pair of back-to-back home runs off 2 different pitchers. And a player with 2 or more home runs off the bench. That was Ramon Laureano. Not only has a team never done that in a game, a team has never accomplished all 3 of those in an entire season. And again, the Orioles accomplished that in Game 2. A part of that makes you go, okay, this team has that magic in them. We might not be able to access it right now, but it's there. We're able to make history. We're able to slug our way to victories. But also then there's that part that's like, wow, it took history for the Orioles just to win a game. That's also kind of how it feels, gang. So while, yeah, it's cool, it's a nice footnote, at this point, that footnote is long gone. The positivity off that footnote is long gone. And we have to see how this team, again, is going to rebound off of not being able to capitalize on momentum like that. That takes us to the National Series. Again, we were hoping that coming off of that 24-2 loss, that embarrassment, this team would show some fight, really pick it back up. That's a reality check moment. That's when it all clicks and you go, what are we doing? We all need to be better. And you hope to see that against the Nationals. Again, a short road trip against a team that's a little banged up, a team that maybe isn't playing its best baseball. Certainly not a walk in the park team, but a team that the Orioles, on paper, should be able to beat. Well, then comes Game 1, and the Orioles lose 7-0. Not only 7-0, gang, we got 1 hit in that first Nationals game. So the game coming off of 24-2, we managed to get a single hit. Just horrible, gang. Dean Kramer got the start, and he got dinged early and often, ended up getting through 5 1/3, but allowing 11 hits, no walks, 4 Ks, 6 runs, only 5 of them were earned. However, still just not a great start by Dean. Certainly the offense didn't have us in the game at any point. Again, one hit. But maybe a better start keeps you in the game long enough to have a little momentum and a little positive vibe that it only takes one small rally to come back in this. That wasn't the case. Once again, Dean does not get the job done. And this is what we were worried about coming into the season with Dean Kramer. These kind of stat lines. Yeah, getting into the 6th inning. Okay. But allowing a lot of hits, allowing enough runs that it's a problem, and that maybe we're not going to be able to compete in that game. Again, Orioles only got one hit, still had 7 men in score, or was 0 for 7 with men in scoring position, 5 men left on base as a whole. Again, you have a chance to maybe chop here, chop there, and get back in the game. And again, with one hit, can you really expect to get back in the game? No. But you have your opportunities where a second or a third hit out of nowhere, it's a 1 or 2 run ball game. It's a tie ball game in the right situation. It's a terrible performance coming off of that 24-2, like we were saying, especially with next to no travel, just having to go down to D.C. Team looked flat. Team really showed no heart or fight after such a horrible loss. Now, this game is funny because, obviously the Orioles have some heart. Obviously the Orioles want to come out and do better. And sometimes when you get too tight in this game, it has reverse effects, right? You got to be loose to play baseball. And we talked about this in the second half of last season when things were unraveling for us, about how, especially as the hitters, you get too tight and you just can't hit. You put too much pressure on yourself in those moments. But I don't know what to say, gang. You need to be able to perform better than getting a single hit after an embarrassment bloodbath that was that Sunday game against the Reds. So then game 2 comes, and you do got Tomo Sagano, and you do feel good. You feel like Sagano might be the only one healthy right now that I trust. I don't even know if it's an if. Sagano is the only healthy Orioles pitcher right now who I trust to give us a positive, good outing. And frankly, it didn't start off that way. Giving up 3 in the first 5 batters combined for a single and 2 home runs, and we found ourselves down 3-0 quick. And for a second, you were like, this game's going to get away from Tomo. Now, after that, he did settle in and really kept the O's in the game, retiring 19 of his last 21 batters that he faced in the game, getting through 7 innings total, 5 hits, no walks, 1 K, 3 earned runs. Just masterclass, really. And again, not a good first inning. Not the first inning that you want to see. And ultimately, having a very nice quality start for this team, allowing them to stay in it. The game was even tied when he left the game going into that bottom of the 8th inning. It was tied at 3-3 because the Orioles had some great at-bats that day. They really did. They kept chipping away at the Nats' lead, and it felt like we were going to find a way to win that game. Certainly I was hoping for. I bet the Orioles every day. I upped that bet double for that Tomo game because it was Sagano and because they had performed so poorly the 2 games before that you felt like the offense is going to start clicking. Again, some great at-bats. And it felt like we were going to find a way to win that game. But the Orioles' bad luck just continues, and I don't want to put the game in luck terms. I don't want to say, oh, that was a loss that was unlucky. But frankly, there were a lot of moments in that game that felt like, man, can we just get some good luck going our way? It's felt like that all season, but this game seemed to encapsulate that for me. Look no farther than these really 3 specific moments. In the 5th inning, Cedric led off with a single, and then you had Gunnar Henderson up in a tough at-bat, and he had a little check swing, wasn't close to going, and instead of even appealing, the home plate ump instantly just says he went, rings him up for strike 3. Certainly no guarantee that Gunnar does anything positive in that at-bat, and certainly no guarantee the Orioles wind up scoring any runs in that inning if that goes a different way. However, again, just bad luck. And frankly, before we go on to the next points, the Orioles have had horrible luck when it comes to umpiring this season. In fact, they are the number 1 most disadvantaged team with bad calls this season. More bad calls are going against the Orioles than any other team, and it seems like a nightly basis. Heck, in that game, I thought Brandon Hyde was going to get tossed for it. And he's been tossed before this season for getting upset about these bad calls against them. So again, Orioles don't do anything in that 5th inning after that Gunnar Henderson strikeout. The Nats also took a lead on a sac fly in the 8th after it was 3-3. And this came right after a possible double play that was a tough play. It was hit to Urias. It wasn't right at him. And it seemed like he took an extra step or two before he threw. Ultimately, they could not get out the runner going to first. He beat it out by a step or two. That allows it to not be 2 outs in the inning for a sac fly that took the lead by the Nationals. Again, maybe not bad luck, but one of those things that's like, man, one step and this game was still tied. Then in the 9th, in the top of the 9th, Gunnar led off the inning with a single. Adley then, following him, rips a ball up the middle, and not as amazing as that Ellie De La Cruz catch that we saw in that Red series, but certainly a very nice athletic play by the shortstop. Gets up, finds a way to snag a ball that looked like a short single into the outfield, and that is the first run. Then the next batter, Mountcastle, does single, and it just makes you wonder if, we don't have the bad luck of that fielder making a great play. We have first and second. If Mountie then singles after that, Gunnar, with his speed, more than likely scores, tying the game. Either way, at worst case, you should have bases loaded with nobody out and a chance to at least tie the game, if not take the lead. Ultimately, though, the Orioles can't do anything after that Mountie single. They wind up losing that game 4-3 and continuing to just be hit with bad luck, whether it be the ump play, whether it be bad calls by the umpires, whether it be great plays by other teams, or just simply having hard hit balls that are right at guys, hard hit balls that get tracked down. Maybe that's not completely bad luck, but it just feels like one of these where off the bat a lot of times you're like, here we go, and then it finds a way just to hang up a little too long, or you have a really nice play by a defender, and that ball doesn't hit the ground, and that ball doesn't find a way to be positive. And it's tough, gang. It's tough sledding right now for these Baltimore Orioles. We have Game 3 tonight of that National Series. Praying we can salvage one in this 3-game set. But when you look at the matchup, it's not really that appealing. It's not really that exciting. You have Cade Povich, who we know just came off of his worst start of the year, against Mackenzie Gore, one of the perennial stars, or rising stars, I should say, for these Washington Nationals. Really nice young lefty, Mackenzie Gore is. O's have limited but very poor results against Gore. In fact, the only one, I think, with a hit against Mackenzie Gore in the past is Ramon Laureano, who actually has a good history again. Not overwhelmingly large sample size, because Gore hasn't pitched very long. But the rest of the Orioles, I don't know if any of them have a hit. And if they do, it's few and far between. Again, not a big sample size. However, There's not a lot to be positive about at this moment. Cade Povich, on the other hand, really has only had one good game under his belt. And in that game, he still allowed 12 hits to the Royals. In many ways, was lucky that not only was that a good game, but not a horrible game. And really, though, he's only had one bad start as well. It was that last start against Cincinnati we just talked about. And he's only allowed more than 3 runs once in the season. That was that Cincinnati game. So, Cade, while he hasn't been excellent, he hasn't been terrible mostly either. Hopefully, we can at least get back to that normal Cade Povich stat line. 4 2/3 innings, 2 to 3 runs given up. I mean, heck, you take that. Absolutely, you take that at this point, gang. We're looking to avoid the Orioles' first 4-game losing streak of the season with a win tonight. Again, I'm not overly confident that they get the job done tonight. I'm worried, gang. I'm worried that it's going to go to 4 straight after today's game. And as we're going to talk later in this episode, maybe a lot higher than that. So, one of the reasons I'm so down on the Orioles tonight and worried that they're going to lose a 4th straight game tonight is their lefty struggles. Frankly, we just can't hit left-handed pitching this season. And it's surprising because we have guys on the team that historically have mashed left-handed pitching. And this team last year was very solid against left-handed pitching. It's something that we were used to. Oh, we're facing a lefty. Nice. We're good against lefties. Even though some of our best players, Gunnar, Cedric, are left-handed hitters. O'Hearn, Holiday, left-handed hitters. It's still been a positive for this Orioles team in the past. And this season it has not been. The last 2 seasons we've hit in the 250s against left-handed pitching. This season right now our batting average against lefties is 168, gang. Absolutely horrendous. Guys like Tyler O'Neill, Jordan Westberg, Ryan Mountcastle, all struggling to hit lefties early. In fact, Tyler O'Neill, who was maybe one of the best hitters against left-handed pitching the past few seasons, and really for most of his career, this season is only batting .095 against lefties. And he has 11 strikeouts in his 21 at-bats against a left-handed pitcher. So not seeing the ball at all, not succeeding at all, and rarely, it seems like, even making contact against these lefties. Adley is also struggling to hit lefties. We know he's a switch hitter, and the scouting report forever has been he's better contact as a right-handed batter. He's better power as a left-handed batter. So the idea that right now Adley's hitting only 160 with no extra base hits against left-handed pitchers is problematic. And we've seen Adley be pretty good so far this season. Certainly not as bad as he was at the end of last season, and it seems like we're getting back to the good, positive Adley Rutschman. The problem really holding him back in my mind is him facing lefties and how he's performed so far against them. Again, this is a guy who's supposed to be a better average and contact hitter against lefties. So far is struggling to put the ball in play against those lefties. So that's why I'm not really overly confident in these Orioles tonight, gang. And moving forward, I'm not really going to be overly confident in them against left-handed pitchers until they show me that they can start hitting those lefties. Now, one of the guys we just mentioned in that lefty segment was Jordan Westberg, who finally broke out of his slump. He had a drought of 0 for 30 not too long ago. Hit a home run in the 7th inning of Game 2 against the Reds. That broke him out of that 0 for 30. Since then, I know he got a triple yesterday. I think he has a double as well. So he finally is starting to hit for extra bases, hit for power. It's great to see from Jordan Westburg, who we know is really one of the key core members of this Orioles team moving forward. For last episode, we kind of mentioned the idea that, hey, maybe he's more of a role player, and maybe this is how we get Kobe Mayo up with consistent playing time, is to make Jordan Westburg kind of our Ramon Urias, if you will. A guy that we can plug and play and we want to keep in the lineup, but maybe more of just a utility guy. I still believe he could be and will be a great player for us. I love Jordan Westburg. I absolutely loved him coming into this year. I loved him last year. I really do think he is a key part of this team's core moving forward. But you have to keep an eye on it, gang. You have to keep your mind open to the idea of what we talked about last episode being true, in the idea that maybe he's best suited as a utility guy for this team. Best suited as a guy that comes in more when there's an injury. Comes in to give a guy a day off at second or third. That's possible, gang. He does have better results in the last does have better results in the last 4 games, for sure. Like we talked about, the home run, the triple. I believe there might even be a double in there. And he's made some adjustments. But ultimately, it was great to hear him talk about how he's just getting back to feeling like himself out there. How he was trusting the process like all these O's are right now. Trust the work they've put in. Trust who they are as a player. And he's just finally starting to feel like himself out there. We talked about how Gunnar Henderson getting better results will ultimately lead to positive things for this lineup. So will Jordan Westburg, who's going to bat more towards the bottom of the lineup. Maybe at times in the top, but I really like him in that 7-hole, give or take, 6-7 spot. And that's just going to help extend a dangerous lineup when he really starts playing better and more like himself. So now our next topic has to deal with Charlie Morton. We're going to call it Chuck Up, because I think that's what the Brits call throwing up. And essentially, that's how I feel when it comes to Charlie Morton at this point. I am beyond over Charlie Morton with this team. I am. I'm beyond over it, gang. He's 0 for 5 in his 5 starts with an ERA of 10.89. Ugh. The second highest ERA an Orioles pitcher has through 5 starts of the season since Ty Block, who had an 11.32 ERA in 2019. Not a guy that you really want to be mentioned with. I don't know if he had any positive results in his major league career. Certainly not in that 2019 season. His curveball, who was one of Major League Baseball's 3 best pitches the last few years, now might be Major League Baseball's worst pitch so far this year. He cannot locate it. When he does locate it, it gets absolutely smashed. He's not getting the movement on it that he wants. He's not having the control on it that he needs. Morton does have a quote, and he says, quote, I don't doubt the fact that I can get it right. It's just how quickly can I get it done? He talked about how, yes, if you give me 35 starts this season, I'm going to find a way to get out of this funk. I'm going to find a way to be successful. Kind of goes along the lines of what we talked about when we were trying to be positive recently about Charlie Morton, about how he is this longtime veteran and he understands his body and his approach so well that it's just a couple tweaks that you need to make in order to be better. However, he doesn't necessarily seem like he feels like it's right around the corner, because he's wondering even himself, how long are they going to stick with me? How many starts am I actually going to get to work out of this? And I can't see it being a lot, gang. The only reason is because of what we're going to talk about, which is essentially the Orioles not having anywhere to go. teammates say, at least publicly, they're not losing confidence in him. And I don't necessarily think that's true. I think that's what they're going to say. I think they're going to be good teammates and good guys and, try and help him through it by not adding any more negativity to the fire. But I don't know. You see in that 24-2 game, kind of, if you're just looking at reactions and you're just looking at body language, even Adley behind the plate is kind of just like, hands up, man. Like, really, this is what we're doing? This is who we went with? This is who you thought was going to be good? I am convinced, personally, at this point, that Charlie Morton is cooked and might not be able to ever turn this around. This may be the end of the rope in Charlie Morton's long career. But like we said, the Orioles just don't have anywhere to really go right now. Young didn't look great by any means. He had an okay start, but again, there were signs that he's another liability right around the corner. And there were signs that he could be useful. But I just don't think he's going to provide much better results consistently. Kyle Gibson should be kind of the next starter to get called up, probably. But at the moment, we only have 4 starters. 5 if you include Brandon Young. So Kyle Gibson's going to just take the place of that Brandon Young spot. So it's not like you're dropping anybody when Kyle Gibson gets there. Obviously, you have a guy like Eflin. Okay, awesome. But do you decide that maybe Cade Povich hasn't shown you enough this season? Do you decide that Dean Kramer's head is on the chopping block more than Charlie Morton's? I mean, there's a long list of guys right now that you could pick to drop from this rotation, gang. I could see the O's eventually cutting ties with Charlie Morton, and then the nightmare scenario begins where we cut ties. Charlie Morton has an ERA of 1 million and is 0 for as many starts as the Orioles gave him. And he looks cooked, and he looks done, and he looks completely useless. And then a team brings him in. And not only does he wind up turning back into a good pitcher for them, but then he winds up somehow being great for them in the postseason. I can see that reality, gang. I know it's crazy to be like Charlie Morton is going to pitch great in the postseason. I don't think that's going to be the case with an Orioles cap on. But out of nowhere, if you put him on the Dodgers or the Padres or even a random team like the Royals, who knows? Out of nowhere, not only did he wind up having an okay rest of his season for them, but now in the playoffs, he's pitching gems, potentially against us if we find a way to make it somehow. Gang, I can already see this being written in the stars. And for whatever reason, we just fail with Charlie Morton. And he fails with us. And the second he goes somewhere else, a light switch turns on and he's okay again. And then the postseason, he's pretty dang good again. All right, gang. So let's get to some more frustrating news. I mean, it's all essentially frustrating right now, gang. It essentially is. I don't know if you saw the hat. It's my gray Orioles hat. I haven't worn it this year. It's very beat-in, sweat, a lot of sweat stains in it, a little dirty. This is a hat that I do yard work or moving or cleaning or even maybe play golf in. This is the type of hat that has been put through the ringer. So I tend not to wear it on this podcast. So I don't want you guys thinking, oh, he's just wearing a dirty hat. I'm wearing the hat, one, because when I was a child, I had this hat. Not this exact one, but the same exact style. The gray with the black brim and the old school bird, which at the time was our logo. It wasn't old school. It was current. But it was my favorite hat. It was my lucky hat. And somewhere around, I feel like 4th grade, I lost it forever. And frankly, on a personal standpoint, I feel like that's when my luck in my life disappeared. That's when I started being unlucky in life. I know it probably has nothing to do with it. I know I'm looking like a superstitious idiot right now. But one, this is also kind of a lucky hat for me. Maybe not as lucky as the original one was, but I'm hoping that this hat maybe brings some luck to us. So I'm going to start wearing it again. And two, it's been through the ringer, and so are we right now, guys. We're in the ringer. We're in the muck. And that's why I'm donning this hat that's been through the ringer, that's been through the muck. And hopefully it brings us some luck moving forward because we are going to need it. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is a possible Cedric Mullins extension. I know a lot of fans are calling for it from the rooftops. A lot of fans are very upset that we haven't even began discussions with Cedric on an extension. And I don't necessarily blame you. Certainly this season, he's been our best hitter so far. Leads the Orioles in average, home runs, RBIs, stolen bases, runs, on base, slugging, OPS, hits, doubles, walks. All of them, Cedric leads the Orioles in. He's batting .284 to begin the year, 6 home runs, 3 stolen bases, 19 RBIs, and an OPS of over 1,000. Cedric's been great, gang. And we talked about other Cedric Mullins stats that are at career highs, or at least the best in 4 or 5 years. Things like strikeout and walk rates are at his career best. His sprint speed is the best it's been since 2020. His exit velocity on hits is also at a career high. So there's a lot of signs and reasons why maybe you could think this is potentially the type of play that he could carry on for a few more years. And even if you need to give him 4 or 5 years on a deal, if he can play like this for the next 2 to 3 years, that still could be successful as far as re-signing him goes and what he brings to this team. Certainly he's a clubhouse leader. Certainly he's a veteran when it comes to this clubhouse. And he's a guy that guys not only respect as a person, but respect the process that he puts in to his game and his craft. But I don't think we can count on him to continue being this type of player. Now, certainly if a deal makes sense and it's not outrageous, then okay, I think you make the deal. If you're looking at like 3 to 4 years at like 10 to 15 a year, that's reasonable, gang. You want to give him 4 for 50? You want to give him 3 for 40? Okay, I can get behind that. Do I think it will wind up working out? Not necessarily. But I don't hate the idea of keeping him in the organization and allowing him the chance to be that guy for us the next few years. I just think we're in the process of this roster turnover. We've already seen it, and we've been seeing it the last year or so. We've seen guys like Santander and Hayes and even McCann get passed by and get let go or traded. We know guys like O'Hearn and Mountcastle could be up next as far as on their way out and in their last run with the O's. And frankly, we have some pretty strong outfield youth right now. Between Cowser and Heston already in the majors, we know how great not only I think Cowser can be, but how great he actually can be when he's healthy in the majors. And he'll be back in a month or two, and we'll get that guy back. Heston has been solid this year. Certainly hasn't been a liability. Still hoping he can take a step or two in that process to be more of that star that maybe we think he is. But then beyond them, if you look in the minors, we have at least 3 very, very solid outfield prospects. And let's call it 4, okay? You have Enrique Bradfield, who we know is at least very fast and great defensively. So he can replace Mullins as far as that goes. We'll see if he can hit major league hitting and get on base consistently. But he's been showing signs of growth when it comes to hitting. You got Dylan Beavers and Judd Fabian, who have been in the system for a couple years, and really continuing to take steps forward, both having nice years so far. And then you got Vance Honeycutt, last year's number 1 overall pick. And Honeycutt is a good prospect as well. Very nice prospect. Again, first round pick. A lot of promise with speed and power when it comes to Vance Honeycutt. Still probably a year or two away from the team, but these are all guys that are coming up in our system. That if you re-sign Cedric Mullins, you're keeping Cowser, you're keeping Heston. Well, where's the spot for one of these young kids? And I'm not saying right now we need to make the spot for the young kids. Heck, we could potentially package some of them in a trade for a maybe stud pitcher or another big prominent player for this core. And then keeping Cedric maybe looks a little more likely. Overall, though, I don't see the reality that we extend Cedric Mullins. You've seen Elias pretty much put the writing on the wall. Again, when it comes to Santander, Hayes, McCann, most likely Mountcastle, and O'Hearn, basically saying, hey, these are our guys for now, but the window's closing for them here. They are getting pushed out ever so slightly. Instead, I really think what we need to be hoping for is that he just continues playing well this season and that Cedric continues putting up the stats that he's putting up now, in which case we can extend him a qualifying offer to get a pick or two back for him next season. And I know that that's not flashy and it's not sexy. It's not what the fans want to hear. But I think that that's probably the best case scenario for everybody, is for Cedric to have this great year. The Orioles to find a way to be at least in the race for a wild card spot. And to keep him through the year, allow him to decline the qualifying offer, and move on as we get a pick. At this point, I might even argue, when you look at extending Mullins, when you look at keeping him for a qualifying offer, I think there might be a better chance in this third option, which is if the season doesn't turn around, gang, and even if we're still technically in the hunt, but we're still kind of on the outs of it, I could see us trading Mullins at some point. And you could probably throw O'Hearn and Mountcastle in there as well. And then we see the real turnover. Now, neither trading him or letting him walk at the end of the year is going to be a favorable move for fans. But ultimately, I think it's probably the right decision in the long term. I really do. I think that you're asking a lot to hope that Cedric Mullins can be around a 30-30 guy for the next couple years. I mean, it's been years since he's done it. And there were some rough years in there where we didn't even know if he was going to survive on the roster at those points. Well, he survived and he's back to playing really good baseball. But I think you're asking a lot to expect that for a few years moving forward. I do. I know that's unpopular in Birdland. I know Orioles fans don't want to hear it. They don't want to admit it. They want to use it as fuel against Mike Elias, just like a lot of other things to be upset with him about. I'm not going to be one of them, gang. It was very similar to when we let Santander go. I liked the idea of bringing him back, especially when he sat there forever. But ultimately, it's best for the entire team and the franchise moving forward in the long term to close that door, get the draft capital, and keep things moving. Now, talking about things that you can criticize Mike Elias for, we know that he's slightly, at least, on the hot seat, if not very much on the hot seat, him and Brandon Hyde. But let's dig deeper into scrutinizing kind of his draft strategy that he's had since he's been here. The Orioles have not spent top draft picks on pitching, and it shows right now. Now, certainly, Mike Elias couldn't have seen into the future and seen all of these pitchers getting hurt and being this thin at starting pitcher. Okay, you just couldn't see that necessarily, and at least its grand scale that it is right now. But when you really dig into where he's used top draft picks, that's when you go, maybe you should have at least invested some in some elite pitching prospects. All right, so while 47% of Elias draft picks have been pitchers, so again, he is drafting pitchers. When you look at any of the drafts or any draft picks that have been within the top 100 picks in that season, only 3 pitchers have been in there for the Orioles. One went unsigned and became a third-round pick the next season, I think, for the Braves. One is recovering from Tommy John surgery. And one was traded to the Rays for Zach Eflin last year. So essentially, we have a single pitcher who was taken in the top 100 picks of his draft in Mike Elias's draft history with the Orioles. And it's not that they haven't hit on some later pitching prospects, because they have done all right. We see guys like Povich, McDermott be very interesting, even if maybe they weren't draft picks. Still, being able to find a guy like Chase McDermott and bring him into the system and understand where he can go and help him develop into a pitcher that's very exciting. If you look at the top 30 prospects for the Orioles right now, 8 of them are pitchers. So again, there are some decent pitching prospects in the system currently. Unfortunately, though, right now they are more projects and farther away from the majors than, frankly, we need right now, because we need depth. We need options, and we do not have depth, and we do not have options. Had you invested maybe in a starter in round 1 last year instead of Vance Honeycutt, maybe the kid's not exactly ready yet, but he at least is capable enough of stepping in and maybe providing you some relief right now. Much needed relief, frankly. So, as for now, we have a giant need for major league pitchers. Like I said, we have no depth to help that need currently. Povich, McDermott, and Young are essentially the only major league pitchers that are somewhat ready. And we see Povich being able to compete but not be great. McDermott's still rehabbing off of an injury. Maybe will be ready in May, maybe not. Either way, he's not necessarily the top most elite pitching prospect out there, not a guy that you can necessarily plug and count on as a guy that can go out there a day or every 5th day and really keep you in a ball game. And Brandon Young, same thing. Brandon Young certainly less elite as far as talent-wise than McDermott and probably even Povich. Even though he had great minor league numbers last year, minor league pitcher of the year, he had his first major league start and looked okay. But again, showed signs of being competitive and showed signs of maybe also being a liability. As far as reinforcements go with the rotation, Kyle Gibson's right around the corner. He had an ERA in the mid-4s last year in St. Louis, so an upgrade, but not much maybe. McDermott and Rogers are just beginning their spring training essentially after their injuries, so maybe a May return for both of them. We talked, McDermott has great stuff, but not necessarily someone I can count on for being very good in the majors right now. And Rogers, last we saw, was absolutely horrendous when the Orioles brought him in last year. Yeah, he pitched well 3-4 years ago. We'll see if the Orioles can turn that project around, because frankly, he is kind of more just of a project right now for the Orioles. Eflin luckily should be back soon, hopefully, maybe even by next series, but we shall see on that. And eventually, obviously, you should be getting back Rayrod, Bradish, and Tyler Wells. And now, when you bring back everybody, okay, now you're like, we got a nice rotation, I think. The problem then is, one, can you count on guys like Rayrod, Bradish, and Wells, and even Eflin, not to get hurt again? And is it too late? Are you already way too far back of even the last wild card spot to make a run, even if those guys stay healthy and perform positively? That I don't know, gang. That I do not know. All right, so we're going to end this episode on a little preview with the Tigers. The Orioles have a TBD down for all 3 games as far as starters go. So while I could have broken it down on this guy with this many days and made an educated guess, we're just going to go with TBD as far as the Orioles starters go, which frankly, it don't matter who's out there. Their performance is to TBD each and every night, gang. And when you look at the Tigers starters that we have to face, there's not good times around the corner. I've kind of hinted at this a few times that the near future may be trouble. Again, if we lose tonight, it will be 4 straight. I'm about to tell you why. If we lose tonight, we may blink and see 7 straight losses for these Orioles. Game 1, we get Casey Mize, who was kind of a top prospect coming out of Mizzou, has pitched for a couple years, not looking amazing at times. But this season, it looks like he has regained whatever maybe he was struggling with the past couple years, looking like that top prospect he once was. 3-1 with a 2.22 ERA. And Casey Mize, listen, no joke, I believe a first-round pick, and solid starter. Next, you got Jackson Jobe, who was one of the top prospects coming into this year. 2-0 with a 2.7 ERA in his 4 starts so far in his major league career. He's an absolute stud, and people were talking about AL Rookie of the Year from this kid coming into the season, and he's starting to show why that may be accurate. He may wind up being the AL Rookie of the Year, even though that is going to be a very tight race when it's all said and done. Game 3, who else but Tariq Skubal, last year's Cy Young winner. In his last 3 starts has only allowed 2 runs, went 2 straight games without allowing a run. Last start did allow 2 runs, but either way, it is not fun facing that guy, another lefty, a stud lefty. And so now you're looking at this series going, we might be lucky if we don't get swept. If we find a way to take a game from these Tigers, we might get lucky, gang. And if they lose tonight against the Nationals and wind up getting swept by them, we may wind up being on a 7-game losing streak headed into the Yankees series to end April. Already the Orioles are 9-14 on the season, 5 back of the division, and with 3 stud pitchers going for the Tigers in this next series, and a lefty going tonight, and 3 games against the Yankees coming up, we may blink and at the end of April be a lot farther back than 5 games back. We may be a lot farther back than 5 games under 500. We may wind up being in a very, very long and deep hole, gang. And that's why we named this episode, frankly, Wake Me Up When April Ends, because the rest of April might be a nightmare. I mean, heck, we are in a nightmare already, it feels like, and we may not have hit rock bottom, gang. We may still have a ways to go until we can look back and go, that was rock bottom. Hopefully, we have a lot of good things coming in May. They say April showers brings May flowers, gangs. So hopefully these showers in April for these Orioles, these rainy, gloomy days for these Orioles, metaphorically speaking, are going to bring us a lot of joy and a lot of flowers and a lot of positive things in May and beyond into the summer. Gang, I wish I could be more positive. I wish I could be more optimistic right now. Frankly, as far as a Birdland member goes, I actually think I still am one of the most optimistic Orioles fans out there right now, because I'm not saying it's completely over and I'm not saying we're completely dead, whereas there's a lot of fans out there right now saying we're a 75 win team and we're going to be terrible this season. Well, maybe they're right. And maybe we find ourselves in such a hole that even playing well afterwards can't get us to the postseason. I still want to believe that, especially with that third wild card spot, there is hope and there is optimism. Like we said, reinforcements should be coming for the rotation. Offensively, we should at least be starting to hit lefties a little better, which will ultimately just lead to more success, more runs, more wins. Hopefully some guys that were in slumps for a period of time, whether it be Westberg or Holiday, really turn it up and turn it on. Hopefully we see the best Gunnar Henderson coming soon. And hopefully everything just starts clicking, gang. But again, I don't know if it's going to be tonight. I don't know if it's going to be in this Tigers series. And I certainly can't sit here and say without a doubt that it's going to be in the Yankees series after that. You know, we talked after the Orioles got their first series win that if we count that as the first of 5 series left in April, which it was, we need to win at least 2 of those 5 series. Well, it looked like we could win the Reds one. We didn't. Looked like we could win the Nationals one. We clearly won't. Now, looking at the Tigers and the Yankees, now you almost partially have to be like, hopefully we can start facing the Yankees and find something, because we played the Yankees well. We always seem to do well against the Yankees the past couple years. So hopefully we can maybe regain that and actually accomplish winning 2 of the last 5 series in April. But right now it don't look good, gang. Because certainly after you win the first of those 5 series, and you have the Reds and you have the Nationals, you're going, hopefully we can win 2, if not 3 of those 5 series before we even get to the Tigers and before we even get to the Yankees. Now I just don't know, gang. Now I, again, don't have a lot of optimism. I don't have a lot of joy in this team. They're very frustrating. And like we say, we'd rather start slow and end hot than start hot and end slow like we did last year. But gang, I don't see a lot of good baseball from this team right now. And I'm hoping that maybe just something like a game of good at-bats, like yesterday, maybe can be a sign of things to come. You start just putting up consistent good at-bats. Eventually good results come. Eventually some good luck comes. Eventually some wins and some series wins come. And some good vibes come back to this team. But as it stands right now, your guess is as good as mine, gang. So I wish I could end positively. Again, I got my lucky Orioles gray hat on for tonight, and hopefully it brings us a win, and I can keep it on moving forward. Heck, maybe we do every episode in this gray hat moving forward. I don't know, gang. We'll have to see how well the Orioles wind up performing tonight and moving forward. All I'm saying is buckle up, because I don't know if we've hit rock bottom yet, gang. And that saddens me. Saddens me because I love this team just about more than anything in the world. Outside of my fiance and my mom, the Orioles are essentially third on my list, gang. I frequently will catch myself crying, not over bad stuff, not over disappointment of this season or anything, but crying at the idea of even going to the World Series. Truly. Like, if I really start visualizing and thinking of the idea of us winning the American League pennant, going to a World Series, potentially winning that World Series, I will wind up crying in hopeful joy in the idea that we can get there and the idea that we can win it all. And I really still think that this core we have is the core that's going to get it done, gang. But I'm really, really questioning whether this is the year now. And maybe I'm late to the party because a lot of you seem to have been there since the off season. I was still, especially coming out of spring camp, very high on this team, truly with the belief that this could be our year. And I still think it could be, because let me leave you with a little positivity and a little optimism, is I think Birdland doesn't necessarily understand and remember what it takes to win a World Series, win an American League pennant. Like, it's not always going to be rainbows and butterflies. You're not always going to be performing well. You're always going to hit a tough streak or two, at least in the course of this season. Things aren't always going to be looking your way. You're going to have things go against you. You're going to underperform at times. And it only takes that one spark. The best teams, the championship teams, they've all gone through it pretty much. They all have these moments of doubt and these moments where it looks like it's not possible for this team to come together and win it all. I watched it, I know it's like a couple months old, but I watched that Red Sox documentary on Netflix, the comeback one, not the one where they follow them recently in the season. This talks about, I guess, the 2004 comeback against the Yankees, and that team was not playing great baseball throughout the season. It took a while for that team to really find its way. But they kept their identity, they kept their belief, they loved each other, and eventually it just came together in the right moment and grew into something legendary, gang. And that's what my hope is right now, because as down about these Orioles right now as I am, and as down about these Orioles as Birdland and Baltimore is right now, it's been a long time, gang. 83 since we won the World Series. So people like me, we've never gone through it. We've never even seen the Birds in the World Series. So we're not used to the idea that championship teams don't always look pretty all season, gang. They go through trials and they go through tribulations and they have to grind and they have to wear themselves down to the bone and hit that rock bottom. And then out of that, something amazing can bloom and grow. And we can still get there. We can still be that team. I don't want you completely losing faith. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be disappointed. I don't want you completely losing faith in this team, in its players, in this organization as a whole, and this core that we have. Because I really do think that they have it in them. Whether this season or in the future, I think it's coming, gang. And not everything's going to come easy. In fact, rarely do great things come easy. So we're being put to the test right now. Our guys are being put to the test right now. And how we find a way to come out of that is what ultimately will be the story of this season. So let's not get too down on April, even if it ends even more horribly than it already has been. Even if we get swept by the Tigers and swept by the Yankees, and somehow we're looking at 10 straight losses going into May. It's not over yet, gang. It's never over until it's over. And we still have a chance to do something amazing. So just believe, Birdland. Believe with me. Believe in this team like I do. Through all the negative. Through all the bad. And who knows? Maybe these O's are going to make us smile in the end. Because maybe all of this is going to create such great things for this team later. Because if we do start playing good baseball, and we do get back into it, and we find our way in the postseason, and then something might not go our way, we're going to remember how bad things had gotten this season and how we pulled ourselves together and pulled ourselves out of the hole that we put ourselves in. And that's going to give the guys the confidence to come back in those moments and win those postseason games, win a postseason series, win a AL pennant, and win a World Series potentially. I still believe, gang. Question is to you. Don't jump off the bandwagon just yet. That's all I'm saying. Ending on a positive note for a very frustration-ridden episode. Gang, this was episode 51 of the Talkin Orioles Baseball Podcast. Wake me up when April ends. Oh, and I can't wait till May. Gang, hopefully we have a lot better baseball coming for us when the calendar turns. But hopefully we can end this calendar or this month with some good baseball as well. All right, gang, so that is going to wrap it up. I appreciate you all for watching, listening, being with us. You know I love talking these O's. So until next time, gang, this was another episode of the Talkin Orioles Baseball Podcast. Let's go, O's.